So my name is Luciano Petrei. I'm a Romanian full-stack developer with over 16 years of experience, um, totaling 20 years of experience in web design, but 16 years as a full-stack developer. And I've worked for companies, small and big. Yeah, so today I just want to we'll just talk about blockchain and AI and how it's creating the period in like this following period that some of us refer to as Web3. So this period that just started is sort of like a quarter of a turning, which I will explain what this means, what I mean by this, by showing you a little video which inspired me to create basically the marketing strategy and the distribution strategy. And basically, it's just a video that made me understood the audience really well and who is like the user for Web3, right? Who is basically the profile. Who's the perfect profile, the perfect match, let's say, right now for Web3 decentralized applications or just any Web3 application or web solution in general. And of course, we start with Generation Z, Gen Z, right? Or younger. And so in order to understand this turning and this audience and what we're doing here, I'm going to show you a little video here, which is made by Van Neistat, and it's based on a really interesting book that I recommend you guys read. So I'm just gonna stop the music and play the video, and maybe we'll see what happens.
This spirited man had been expecting this crisis. Maybe not a global pandemic per se, but he knew something was coming.
I'm gonna put a bunch of books now, and the last one is gonna be the one that I talked about.
For a decade, this spirited man had been reading books, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. His brother, a spirited man himself, told him to read this book, The Fourth Turning. This book turned out to be this spirited man's favorite kind of book, a mind blower.
Totally.
A book about how and when history repeats itself. And this is what the book said. History repeats itself in 80-year blocks called saeculum, but we'll just call them history blocks. Not exactly 80 years. This is history, not math, but roughly the span of a human lifetime, maybe 80 to 90 years. Within these 80-year history blocks, we have 4 turnings of around 20 years each. We usually call them generations. This book calls them turnings. Turnings are sort of like seasons, like spring, summer, fall, winter. Throughout our history, we've had these 80-year blocks, and the 80-year blocks have been remarkably similar to each other. We're in one now. The first turning, the first season, is a high, an upbeat era. The second turning is an awakening, passionate era. The third turning is an unraveling, a downcast era. And the fourth turning, well, sorry, but fourth turnings suck. The fourth turning is a crisis, an era of upheaval. We're in a fourth turning right now. So let's take a look at our saeculum, our history block. The history block that we're in the crisis of right now. Our high began after our World War II victory. By our, we mean America's. These are America's history blocks and turnings. During a high, the getting is good. We had the most even distribution of wealth during our high. You could work at a gas station and afford to buy a house. This high is the period that the MAGA hats refer to. We got Hank Williams and Elvis and Little Richard and the birth of rock and roll. We launched monkeys and men into space. This is when the Mustangs and Corvettes first came out. Our high ended with the assassination of John F. Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963.
Very interesting period, right? And the event that basically separates the each quarter of a turning, let's say, you cannot pinpoint a single event that can, mark the beginning of the new generation or period and, the previous period. There's no way to, but I guess this guy is trying to say that's one of them. And the book gives many examples of this. And it's just like, when you do research, you have to give multiple examples. You cannot just rely on one single event. Of course, it's not about one single event. It's just that he's listing a couple of good examples, right, for us to get a gist of the idea.
The high is not a high for everyone, of course. America still had a segregated South. Homosexuality was illegal and considered a mental disorder. The high is a period of conformity. The age of nonconformity and of social justice begins during the Awakening, our passionate era. During the Awakening, we had Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement, acid, Vietnam protests and Vietnam itself, the Women's Liberation Movement, Stonewall and the Gay Rights Movement, great movies, great music. This is when the first Macintosh computer came out. The Awakening is a time of increasing individualism. This second turning, this awakening, ended with the re-election of Ronald Reagan in 1984. Things get messy during the third turning, during the unraveling. We got the fall of Soviet communism and the beginning of the Russian gangster state. The greatest musicians of the time sang about violence and decay in their deteriorating cities. The LA riots, OJ, the bombing of Bosnia, and the Columbine high school shootings on the same day. September 11th, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Our unraveling ended with the financial crisis of 2008. A fascinating fact about this book.
Very interesting, right? 2008. So exactly when Bitcoin was launched, right? And that's a very interesting period. Like, usually, because in the past we didn't have so much information and methods and ways to communicate and save information and access information and distribute it, it's basically harder to pinpoint events in history as further you go back in time because there's less data, right? So now 2008 is better delimited, right? It's like we know exactly it was that year, we know exactly what happened, we know more about it, and we know some of the I guess the technologies or solutions that or let's say alternative systems that people like Satoshi Nakamoto or groups like, we don't know if it's one guy, but usually the world is changed by one guy like Nikola Tesla, and then more people join, but it starts with one guy, right? It was Satoshi Nakamoto, and then he looked for another programmer to help him complete the work, but it always starts with one guy that has a vision and gives everything for that vision, right? So this is what happened in 2008. Bitcoin was launched, and you know the rest. Let's see the rest of the video.
It was written during the last third turning, published in 1997. But the book predicts now, what's happening now in this fourth turning. And what's happening now is right on schedule. "80 years ago, in the last fourth turning, America had her Great Depression, then World War II. 80 years before that, the Civil War. 80 years before that, the Revolutionary War. Now it's our turn to save the country." So where do you fit into all this? What's your role? It depends when you were born. Each generation, each cohort, tends to embody a specific archetype. An archetype that will move the society towards the next high. Each generation's archetype is the characteristic that will define the generation in its prime, in midlife. The boomer archetype is the prophet. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs are boomers and prophets. Both predicted that one day everyone, not just big corporations and governments, would own a computer. Gates even predicted a crisis like COVID-19 5 years beforehand.
Of course.
The writers of this book are boomers and prophets. Gen X is the nomad generation. The quintessential Gen Xer, Elon Musk, builds things that move us from one place to another.
Mars.
Rockets, electric cars, hyperloops, nomadic devices.
Let's go.
But the millennials, raised during the unraveling,
Raise your hand.
will emerge as the hero generation during this crisis. These are the Parkland High students, the frontline hospital workers, and Malala Yousafzai. The book says millennials will be the World War II heroes of our history block. We don't know what Gen Z will do, but they will be an artist generation. From them will emerge the next Bill Withers, Toni Morrison, or Bob Dylan, all born during the last crisis, all from an artist generation. The history block before ours ended with World War II and began with the Civil War, 80 years prior. The history block before that ended with the Civil War and began with the end of the Revolutionary War, 80 years prior. Every 80 years or so, something big comes along and changes everything. And now, we're at the end of our history block, right in the middle of our crisis. We're in the process of changing our world again. The authors of The Fourth Turning tell us that these crises are like forest fires. Unpleasant, but necessary. They clear the woods for new growth. As we work towards our next high, this crisis will tilt the playing field away from the old and towards the young, they tell us. But the victory is not guaranteed.
Yes.
We will, each of us, need to rise to the occasion during this crisis. We will need to develop and fortify our virtues as we pursue a greener pasture.
All right, good books.
Our Western society was built to foster the potential of each individual within it. The aggregate effort of individuals keeps it going. The spirited man wonders, what is his role? What verse must he contribute to help extinguish the crisis? This spirited man is told that his cohort, Gen X, is the repair generation. The one stuck with fixing the messes and cleaning up the debris
How
left
are we
by others.
serving them? How are we helping them?
Cleaning, fixing, repair. This particular spirited man, from the last pre-digital generation, the last of the analogs, just happens to have a particular knack for repair and for fixing. Perhaps his nomad generation is tasked with ferrying his society from one saculum, from one history block, to another. But where does he start? Well, the zip line at the community center playground.
Before he finishes the video, I just want to say that this is like, when you go running at the Olympics and you have to pass the baton, right? It's like boomers are passing everything to us millennials. And this started over a decade ago when basically 1% of humanity owned 99% of all created human wealth. And today, more than a decade later, we now have 1% owning 50% of human created wealth globally. So this means that there's a colossal, I've been talking about this for a decade, there's a colossal wealth transfer, a vertical transfer of value and information going down from the older generation, from boomers to millennials, and then to Gen Z, right? And to younger. And so we have a responsibility, basically. We are using these advanced technologies. Boomers don't get them. They're not going to use them fully like we are going to use them. We use AI, we use blockchain, we use everything at our disposal to basically create businesses or to create technology that serves everyone, or even if it's just a little niche, we're going to take more money from the older generation, and this, I think, will be complete somewhere around 2030, and then millennials will have most of the value that boomers created or generated, and we have to pass it along to Gen Z. And so I'm going to finish the video, and then I'm going to see what happens.
Has been broken for over a year, and this particular spirited man happens to have the tools to fix it.
All right, that was it. So I just want to go through all these tabs. I have a lot of tabs here, and I'm going to close this one. And so this is the domain that we will be using to launch, I think, the test, maybe even the test net, but this is where mainnet will be launched when it's ready. And so far for the project, we have I have only completed the front end, which means basically the user interface, the user experience, right? Is the part of the application that is the interface for the user, right? And so you can access it here, and it will take you to this domain that I use to basically push updates whenever I finish something for this dApp. If you click here, it will take you to all the data in here is mock data, right? So it's you can go and play around with the interface and see what happens. Inventory here that will be used for NFTs, right? Notifications, profile. You can access this domain in your browser, and you can play around and check the market. For example, this will be the market for NFTs, right? And you will be able to create an NFT very easily, right? Just like posting something, right? You put a text, an image, or a script, or a little game, or something. You will be able to create multiple types of NFTs and just send it, and you will be able to put it on the market or in the loot system, in the global loot system, because everything on this social media network is going to be gamified. You may or may not participate in the gamification. It doesn't really matter. It's just more ways to earn the token, which is gratitude token in this network. And of course, let's go back to this video here. I want to show you this 1 minute video, which talks a little bit about, if you haven't seen it already, about basically it explains what I'm trying to do here.
Hey, I'm Lucian, the geek who is turning a childhood obsession with tech into FreeHumans.world. Let's take a rapid-fire journey through my world. I come from a poor family. My parents are retired art school teachers, and I have 3 younger siblings. Started my tech journey with a screwdriver at 7. I was dismantling toys to learn their secrets. Fast forward, built my first game console at 14, my own website at 15, and was the local tech wizard by 17. Fixed PCs, built game worlds, even helped folks discover the internet. Every step fueled my passion for creating spaces where technology brings us closer. 15 years of web R&D later, I'm 36 now and more excited than ever. Now imagine a digital world where your engagement and creativity earns you tokens that have real utility. That's FreeHumans.world. It's secure, it's democratic, and it's where your ideas make a difference. Join me in making this vision a reality. Let's shape this free world together, where every share, every like, every creation enriches our world with information and value owned by the people, not by a single company.
Okay, so The most important feature, the main algorithms that we will be using for this network are called like to give and share to earn. And it's basically every time someone likes one of your posts, you receive a bunch of tokens. Every time you share a post from another author, you receive a bunch of tokens depending on your followers, right? So when you click, it will be something like this or like this. And if you don't like the sounds, you can disable them in here or change the interface to bright, disable the sounds, do whatever you want. All right, so I'm going to close this now and head on to a little pitch that I made a while ago. This also will, I guess, show some information about what we're trying to do here and why we're heading in this direction with this project. Just a little bit more context, I guess, so you guys know what we're doing here. All right, so if some of you may not already know this, I will find it hard to believe, at least the people that are following this project. If you don't already know what Web3 is, this slide is a very good way to illustrate it. So Web 1 was up until the year 2000 when, you know, the biggest player in the internet, in the web space was Yahoo and a few other companies. But Yahoo was basically the dominant player, right? And after the dot-com bubble, as they call it, right, when it was like that Y2K panic, it's when Yahoo started fading away and being overtaken by companies like Facebook or Google search and social media, Web 2, right? So that's 20 years ago, like 23 years ago, right? And that's when Web 2 basically started dominating the internet, and the internet everything became social media. It was all encompassing, integrated with everything, right? And so after that, we are currently in a new period that is starting. And we see all Web 2 companies in a decline, trying to adapt to blockchain and AI and all these new technologies, right? A lot of startups are trying and failing, trying to find the recipe, right, for Web3. Web3 is just another period of time. It's not like a number or like a version of a software, right? So it's like just another, like World War II, World War One. So this is how I see the term Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. I think this is a more objective way of looking at the evolution of the web, right? So I'm just going to go quickly through these. So the trend is inevitable. People want more decentralization because they have more ownership and autonomy, right? So blockchain and also AI is about eliminating intermediaries, eliminating dependence on grid or expensive systems or, you know, the data centers. Basically, they're mitigating costs, right? Dividing the cost of infrastructure and everything between thousands and thousands of participants. And so basically what Web3 or blockchain is doing is it's allowing us to have autonomy, better services, more reliable services without having to pay as much as Web 2 companies paid when they started, like Facebook or other big platforms. They had huge costs with infrastructure, with employees. And so AI is also basically removing that gatekeeper, right, for knowledge, for information, for solutions, or basically for intelligence, right, for intelligent information. And so we're doing all this with AI and blockchain. And if I may give two models which are partially decentralized, I guess, in their business model is Uber and Airbnb, where they're the biggest, let's say, one of the biggest companies, if not the biggest companies, of renting places or vehicles, right? But they don't own the places or the vehicles like the rest of the companies do, right? Or, you know, the owners of each piece of real estate. And so this is a partially decentralized business model, and it has its benefits. I mean, the benefit was that they could scale up globally really, really quickly, right? Because they didn't have this infrastructure cost. They didn't have to own the places or the cars, right? So if you can abstract that and put it into terms of, what's going to happen with the next generation of applications, which will use AI and blockchain, you may get an idea. But there's also the security issue of quantum computers, which already can use this algorithm called Shor's algorithm, and it basically it's a way to crack any standard web encryption like SSL, RSA in seconds. So if a bad player, a bad actor will access this kind of quantum computers and use them to target some important systems, you can imagine, or just your your personal network or services, your business, your organization, a community. Uh, they can create havoc, like real issues, right? Of course, Web 2 again comes with a lot of issues, which you can watch on the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma. So I'm not going to go into all these issues. You know about the advertising. They lost 50% of revenue from advertising from traditional Web 2 advertising, right? It's just because it's so aggressive nowadays. And the people in these networks, like, I'm not going to give any names, but it's like, it's so negative, right? Negative and false information travels 6 times faster than positive or truth-based information. And basically what happens is people don't like being manipulated and spied upon and being treated as products, right? The user is the product. If it's free, you are the product. It's not free. So that's the idea behind Web 2 social media. And it's really a really dark pattern business model. And dark pattern means that it's a term that comes from designing interfaces, especially web interfaces. And it means that the company or the project or the platform or the app, whatever, the owner, the developer, implemented a sort of like methods and strategies to convince the user to take an action on the company's behalf, right? Not for the benefit of the user, right? So for the benefit of the company. Like, I'll give you an example. When you go to a website and you register, just the smallest example, the terms and conditions are already checked. I agree, right? So, and also they're not most websites, with some exceptions like Google or others, don't even show you, like, there's a link to the terms and conditions, which is really small, something like that. So they don't really show you the terms and conditions, and so people never read those, and they don't even, some people like actually don't actually see it. Like, they're looking, maybe they have like old people, or they don't have perfect sight. And so instead of helping the user, show your terms and conditions, your community guidelines, which in Facebook's case, and I'm going to say this about Facebook, the community guidelines is not created or voted upon by the community. It's Facebook's guidelines. So I don't know why they keep calling it community guidelines. But anyway, so the thing about Web 2 is that, like, Gen Z is not making Facebook accounts anymore or other Web 2 accounts anymore. They're exploring alternatives, right? Like TikTok or whatever, something else, right? Of course, we all know, because all money is information today, basically it's very vulnerable. Again, if they use quantum computers, banks are getting hacked like all the time, even without quantum computers. If they use that, I don't know what will happen to the old money protocols like ISO 20022 or SEPA, or I don't know, BIC, SWIFT, all these like 40 years old technology written in COBOL or something like that, right? What will happen to this, or even to newer systems when they use quantum? I mean, I'm sure that some actors will use quantum computers to create havoc and to steal people's money. And so banks and governments should really be more concerned about what will happen in the next 5 or 10 years and take blockchain technology more seriously and use it, even if they don't create an open decentralized system, just to upgrade the current system so the money of their clients is safe, right? So all right, so we're defining a Web3 system here. These are the basic first principle guidelines. I mean, the first principles that we have: decentralized code, decentralized infrastructure, decentralized business model, right? And so we're creating this decentralized application that will be available on mobile, iOS, Android, and web. And we will use AI to basically detect if every sign up is a real human being and a unique human being. So you cannot trick the system to create multiple accounts or an account for a bot, use multiple emails and so on and so forth. On this platform, every account is one single human being, a unique user, unique human being, and that's it. And I talked about this earlier, the share tour, and I like to give algorithms that will basically allow the money to circulate in this ecosystem, right? Use cases, anyone is a digital creator nowadays, right? An influencer, or if you just post a picture of yourself daily, like girls usually do, some men too, just update of your day or whatever, people will just follow you. It's just natural. People want to connect, want to see what other people are doing, and so why not earn from that? Why not have an instant crowdfunding system that pays you? Basically, just every single like is not just like, I have 10,000 likes, I'm so cool, look at me. It's just for vanity, right? If you have 10,000 likes, it's going to be like 10,000 tokens. It's not going to be a vanity number. It's going to be a real amount of tokens. So that's instantly available as people like your post. And also the share button will make you earn some tokens by distributing information. This is the way we basically provide exposure for the token. This is one of the main utilities. Like, if you have tokens that you earn in the network anyway, or you will eventually buy from an exchange, you can use that token to boost any of your posts. And so when you boost a post, like let's say we go back to here, and we go to, let's say, to the main timeline, right? And if it's your post and you boost it, you create a budget that is available for people to take whenever they share. The algorithm will calculate a little bit of tokens that they deserve based on your, just your budget, your basically your criteria that you will select. Like, for example, either globally or in a country, if you want to target that. But it's going to be a really simple targeting system. It's just going to be geographically, language, and that's about it. Maybe age or something like that, sex. And just like TikTok, for example, TikTok has the simplest audience configurator, and it's going to be something like that. But everything is going to be decentralized, and you're going to earn real tokens, real transactions on the blockchain, right? So to finish this, this is going to be used, the main currency that will be used in this network is GRAT, but we're also looking at partnering with the XPR network community and offer that token as well in the markets. And this is the end of the slide, and I'm going to close it now and just go a little bit more through the UI and then start actually doing some tasks, all right? Because we have a lot to do for this project, and it's an open source project, so everyone is invited to look up our repository, our organization, send us an email, and if you want to join this effort, this mission, this open source mission, you are free to do so. And of course, I would love to have collaborators on this. But for now, I am the only engineer that is working on it, and I finished the front end, the authentication, the registration. Actually, we can go straight to the grant that we have pending for the XPR network. If you don't know what it is, in my opinion, it's the most advanced blockchain in the world right now. And I did a lot of testing and researching with other blockchains, basically to determine this. This is their website. They were called Proton Chain last year, but they rebranded. I'm not sure what the reason is. I guess it was too similar with Proton Mail or something like that. Um, yeah, so what we're doing, we're using this blockchain for everything related to value transfer, value store and transfer, right? So because this blockchain is really, really fast, right? And it's already listed on top exchanges. They have so many good tools developed already for free, open source, and they are really, really focusing on providing better tools for the community, for developers, right? And it's basically a fork of EOS, maybe 90% or more. It's based on the work of Dan Larimer, which created EOS. And so if you know EOS, you know that basically the smart contracts on this blockchain are created or compatible with TypeScript and C++. It's those. It compiles into those WASM and ABI files, and it has zero fees for the end user. That's one of the things that I was like, this is the most important criteria for me. If I didn't find a blockchain that had zero fees for the end user, I couldn't have started this mission, this project, basically. And so they solve that by moving the fees to the developers, to me. As a developer, I'm creating a dApp or a smart contract. I pay the fees for the smart contract operations or for creating new balances, new users, new accounts. And so I can find ways to get it back, right, from the users. But as a developer, it's best that I pay everything, basically all the little transactions for the smart contracts and everything, than to force the user to pay the gas fees. The gas fees are a nightmare. Like, imagine all people or just anyone just trying to transfer a token to a friend or from a friend, and looking at the wallet and saying like, you don't have gas fees, and then what the hell is gas fees? And then you look up and it's either Ethereum or Matic, which is a copy of Ethereum, Polygon, right? It's some sort of copy of Ethereum. It's some sort of gas fee. Like, I have to buy this coin to create an account on an exchange and then buy the coin and then transfer it back to my wallet, and then it's a nightmare. Another thing that is a nightmare is the address, basically, which in this blockchain you don't have that address like a Ethereum example address. Let's see. So this is the nightmare of what an Ethereum address looks like. Like, this is impossible to manage. This may be okay for computers, but it's not readable for humans. You cannot transmit it. You cannot say it. It's only copy paste. That's it. That's also a security issue. You have to copy paste things all the time. It's very, very unsecure. Now, on the other hand, XPR network doesn't have that. Instead of that, it has universal usernames, like Lucian 123, or just Jessica, or just simple usernames, like universal unique like Revolut or like Telegram has. And that solves, like, it makes it really, really friendly for users in combination with the fees. It's very fast. It has 4.5K transactions per second with a finality of 1 second or less. On the other hand, if you compare it to Ethereum, for example, the most popular blockchain out there, except Bitcoin, of course, Ethereum has like about 100 transactions per second top speed on average. But this is an average. It doesn't actually have finality of 1 second like EOS or XPR network. And so it has basically like on average, the fastest speed is 20 to 30 seconds for a transaction. It will take 100K transactions per second in the Ethereum memory pool, but it will take an average of 14 minutes to finish those transactions at peak capacity, right? And so it's 100 transactions per second or less on average, but no finality like that, right? A lot of cool things like zero knowledge proof, KYC level 1 on chain, a lot of cool stuff. So I'm gonna close this now, and all right, so let's go. I'm gonna close this as well. Go through the grant. So we applied for a grant, and we're still waiting for the consortium to review it. this process is a little bit slow lately, and I'm not sure what is going on with the community management and all the stuff that is going on, but I'm sure that they will bounce back and everything will go back to normal at one point. So we're waiting for a review from their team, and there's a little bit of background here, a little bit of screenshots for the UI, the problem, the solution that we're solving. How do we fit in the ecosystem with the XPR network, right? The main value propositions, which are a lot of value propositions that we are trying to develop here. Here we go. We see the team here, and of course, teams, as it happens with open source teams, it will be like an ever transforming and ever like a fluid team. Some people will come, some people will go. It's just the current composition of the team. So the roadmap is here. This is what we currently finished, and I'm not going to demo this today. I have for today, the topic is basically integrating AI into the workflow, right? Sorry about that. Right. So we have a lot of tasks here, but before we go into to pick one of these milestones, which are very big stories on their own. In Agile, we would call this epic stories, I guess. And we have to split them into smaller stories. But before we go that, we have a backlog here in the organization repository. I want to show you the intro for GitHub Copilot that I have integrated here. And I'm using VS Code as a editor. You can go to the extensions, of course, and GitHub Copilot is the extension that I'm using for using AI directly in the code editor, right? And this is recently launched. It was launched this year, and is very, very awesome. And I'm going to show you a few tricks. Okay, let's collapse this a little bit. And before I actually start anything here, I want to go through this video. It's 7 minutes long. And basically, while we watch this video, I'm going to set a timer here for the whole live stream because I don't want to go more than 2 hours today. All right. So let's play it.
With GitHub Copilot, writing code has become faster and more efficient than ever before. In this video, I'm going to show you how it works, discuss the benefits and limitations, provide some real-world examples on how you can use it, and share my personal opinion on whether it's worth using. So let's get started. As you start typing a line of code, GitHub Copilot automatically generates suggestions for you to choose from. These suggestions are based on the context of your code and the libraries that you're using. Not only can this help you save time by reducing the amount of typing you have to do, it can also help you discover new functions and libraries you may not have known about before. Plus, with GitHub Copilot's machine learning capabilities, the more you use it, the better it becomes at predicting what code you need. Overall, the autocomplete feature of GitHub Copilot is a powerful tool for developers that can greatly enhance their productivity and efficiency. Another great feature of GitHub Copilot is its ability to generate code based on the comments that you write. By writing a comment that describes what you want to accomplish, GitHub Copilot can generate the code for you. This is particularly useful for developers who may be new to a project or are trying to understand someone else's code. By describing your intention in a comment block, you can help others understand the code more easily, and GitHub Copilot can even help you generate the code to accomplish that intention. This can save you a lot of time and effort by reducing the need for a lot of manual coding. However, it's important to note that while GitHub Copilot can generate code based on your comments, it's still important to write clear, concise comments that accurately describe your intention. With this feature, GitHub Copilot can make code more understandable and accessible for developers of all skill levels. So you might be thinking, what if the autocomplete is giving you suggestions that you don't exactly like or want? So what you can do is toggle through the options. The way to do this is hold the option key and then use the closing brackets on each side. So you can go back and forth through the suggestions and see if there's one that accurately depicts what you're trying to do. If you don't like any suggestions, you can easily toggle back and forth to find the right one. This is a powerful feature that saves you time and effort by allowing you to find the right code quickly without having to manually type everything out. Another powerful feature is the ability to generate additional suggestions of code using the Control-Enter keyboard shortcut. GitHub Copilot will open a window of suggestions specifically for that code. This can be particularly useful when you have a piece of code that you want to optimize or when you need to refactor it. The suggestions provided can help you improve your code quality, optimize performance, and make it more efficient. So just a piece of housekeeping. If you want to turn off GitHub Copilot, you can either do so from the command palette or you can do so at the bottom of the VS Code toolbar. To do this from the command palette, press Command-Shift-P on Mac and search for GitHub Copilot and simply toggle it off. Alternatively, you can turn it off from the bottom of the VS Code toolbar by clicking the GitHub Copilot icon and selecting Disable. So if you can't tell already how enthusiastic I am towards GitHub Copilot, just hold on. So GitHub Copilot Labs is a new initiative by GitHub that allows developers to try out experimental features of GitHub Copilot before they're released to the public. They're designed to help developers write better code faster and more efficiently, just like we've already seen, but by participating in GitHub Copilot Labs, developers can provide feedback on these features. So GitHub Copilot Labs is a separate extension for GitHub Copilot. So you will have to get a separate extension if you want to use these features, but let me tell you, these features, in my opinion, are worth it. The amount of things that you can do in GitHub Copilot Labs is really remarkable. With GitHub Copilot Labs, there are 4 main buckets. There's the explain, language translation, brushes, and test generation. The explain feature allows you to highlight a piece of code and provide an explanation of what it does. This can be particularly useful when you're collaborating with other developers or when you need to share code with someone who may not be familiar with it. To use this feature, just highlight the code and click Ask. GitHub Copilot Labs also provides the ability to translate code from one language to another. This can be useful when you're working on a project with multiple programming languages, or when you need to convert code from one language to another. GitHub Copilot will do its best to generate an equivalent Python version of the code for you. It goes without saying how incredible of a feature that this is. The brushes feature in GitHub Copilot Labs provides additional code templates and snippets for specific use cases. For example, the readable brush makes code more readable by breaking it into logical segments and adding comments to explain each part of the code. This can make it easier for other developers to understand your code and make changes if necessary. The Add Types brush adds the type annotations to a JavaScript file. This can be particularly useful if you're working on a large project with multiple developers, and it can ensure that the code is consistent and easy to understand. Not to mention if you just don't like adding types to a TypeScript file. The Fix a Bug brush helps you quickly identify and fix bugs in your code. It uses machine learning to analyze your code and suggest possible fixes for any of the errors that it might find. This can save you a lot of time and effort by automating the process of debugging and fixing issues in your code. The debug brush can add debugging code to your project to help you fix and find an issue. This can be particularly useful if you're working on a complex project with a lot of moving parts. It can help you quickly identify and resolve issues as they arise. The clean brush cleans up your code by removing unused variables and functions. This can make your code easier to read and understand and can help you reduce the clutter and make your project more streamlined. The list steps brush helps you create step-by-step instructions for a specific task. This can be particularly useful if you're working on a project with multiple developers and you need to provide details or instructions for a specific task. The Make Robust brush makes your code more robust by adding error handling. This can help ensure your code runs smoothly and doesn't crash or cause issues for your users. The Chunk Code brush helps you split your code into smaller, more manageable chunks. This can make it easier to work with your code and can help you reduce the likelihood of errors or issues arising. The Document Code brush generates comments and documentation for your code. This can make it easier for other developers to understand your code and can help you ensure your project is well documented and easy to maintain. Finally, the Custom brush. This is an incredibly powerful brush. The Custom brush allows you to highlight code and come up with custom commands that you want to do with a piece of code. For example, you might be writing a React component and realize that the suggestion that GitHub Copilot gave you initially wasn't accessible. So you can use this brush and say, make this accessible. From there, you can say, well, I also want to add hooks and attach them to each input. You can simply ask, add hooks for each input. Finally, what if you want to do something with the form? You can say something like, make a handle submit to localhost 3000/API. So I like this because it's within my editor. I don't have to hop out to ChatGPT and try and get a recommendation if I'm trying to play around with an AI model. I have it all right built into VS Code. Overall, my thoughts on GitHub Copilot are positive. I've been using it for a few months now, and I've found that it's become more and more useful over time. If I had to rate it, I would give it a 9 out of 10. The reason I wouldn't give it a perfect 10 is that it still does produce some errors from time to time. And by time to time, I mean a fair bit. But over time, I expect this to get better and better, and I have noticed that the more I use it, the better that the suggestions are. With that being said, GitHub Copilot does have a 2-month free trial, so I encourage you to give it a try and see if it can help you in your coding. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative.
All right, so I'm going to close this now, and even though this video is about Copilot, I do also use ChatGPT, and I'll give you an example here. I like basically the chat feature of ChatGPT because it maintains a history, right, that I can access, and if you didn't know, you can also share it right here. You can copy the link, and the conversation, the whole thing can be shared with anyone, right? And so every conversation that you see here on the left, you can create a shareable link for it. And for this, I wanted to go and create a bunch of users, and instead of trying to come up with the names myself, I just thought, let's get some exotic names of animals and use them for users, right? And so I'm gonna use this straight into the editor with Copilot and see if it understands and knows what I want to do, right? So what I'm gonna do before I do this, actually, I just want to go quickly and show you here the backlog. The current in progress task is basically creating the database schema, and I'm using ScyllaDB, which is a very, very awesome open source, but also paid service if you want. But it's an open source database which it's a distributed database. Basically, it's a fork of Cassandra, right, which is created by Apache. And it's a very highly optimized fork of Cassandra, and it's basically 10x for most systems or solutions that, especially if they have a lot of queries, intensive queries, unstructured data, something like for a social network, right? So ScyllaDB uses basically these instances, or let's say nodes that you create, and each node has a copy of the database, and the content or the information is being sent from the closest, I guess, or the fastest node that is close to the client. And it's like a single digit latency database. So off the shelf, without any improvements to the config and everything, to the structure of the data that you have for your project, it can achieve like single digit latency, like less than 10 milliseconds for a typical query, right? And that's awesome. Like, you can't say that about like a lot of databases. Of course, for AI and for unstructured data like social media content, a vector database might also be interesting. But for now, just for the testnet and for the first version, the MVP, the first version of the dApp, ScyllaDB is more than enough. It's an overkill for what we're trying to do here. So I'm using this, and I'm trying to define here, the syntax is very similar to MySQL, right? Basically, or SQL. And it creates like this. The types are different, a bit different, right? Instead of varchar, you have text, or different bunch of types. There are a few differences, but the syntax is very, very similar, right? So we created a bunch of tables here, and of course, for the next tasks, which we will choose from, let's say here, I cannot do this one, I think, first, but I think the next step would be to create the posting system. But before I do anything, I want to just add like the 10 users that I want to add 10 users in the database, so that we can play with the users in the database, and we can basically follow each other, and I can create let's say connected users, right? The first mock users, mock data. And so I'm gonna go to this text that we created here with ChatGPT, and go to the code editor finally. With a lot of delay, I know, but let's see. So I will collapse everything. You see here, I have the core. There's typical structure here: controllers, middleware, utils, right? That we need. We have the public HTML, the static content. We have the app. I'm using TypeScript, by the way. It's very important because it's compatible with the smart contracts that this blockchain allows, right? You can use TypeScript directly for the smart contracts. So because we're using SPR network, which has this TypeScript compatibility, the application is better off being written in TypeScript. So we're using that. All right, so I'm gonna go to, let's say, here. Okay, I'm just gonna paste this this text here, and in order to use Copilot, you see the first suggestion it does. I don't want that. I'm gonna say a comment. I don't want this either. No, you see, I'm basically I'm holding down Control and using left parenthesis like this and this, right? But look what it did. Now it extracted. It knew that I want the names, but I want basically usernames, right? So create, I don't know, 10 usernames from the text above, right? And I'm going to press enter. There we go. So we have an array with the usernames, right? Do we want this? All right, I'm going to press tab and see what happens. I'm going to delete this now. But you know what? I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to say, I'm going to highlight this. So 10 usernames. I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to press Control I, and I can ask Copilot to do something for me, like adjust the username, just remove spaces and make the text lowercase. Let's see what it does. I press enter, and look, it already did this for me, but it didn't know how to remove the space correctly. Maybe go to the next. How do I go to the next? So I don't like this, but let's see. If I press this regenerate button, what happens? Regenerate. No, so this is not what I want. I did this earlier and it did it correctly. Right now, it just created this. I guess you don't have to use for this all the time. You can just make it like this. Now the rules for the blockchain username is you have min 4 chars, max 12 chars, and you have, yes, it already knows this from somewhere in these files, I guess. There's a condition. Let me ask, how do you know this? But first, let me see. No special characters. Yes, that's true. No uppercase letters. That's true. No spaces. No underscores. No dashes. I mean, yeah, sure. So let me ask Control Y. Where did you find this information? Have direct access to external sources. Based on okay. Can do viewing chat. So it doesn't know how to reference the place where it learned this, but it's definitely somewhere in the application. All right, so I don't need this here. I just wanted the usernames, and the first step is creating the list. The second step is actually creating the query, and we can create the query and paste it here in the terminal directly. I'm connected here with CQLSH. I don't know how to pronounce this in a more efficient way. It's the ScyllaDB, I guess, command interface that you can use directly to query the database. And also because the database is getting very, very large, it's getting like a nightmare, I'm using Xmind to create this sort of like mind map, right? And we start with, user management. We have users and everything here. We have content here. And so we're still at the users, because what I want to do is query the database and see what happens with this table. So in the users table, we have no users. And we can either go through the registration process, or we can add them manually. So I don't want to go through the registration process for every user. And so I want to create a query. And in order to create this query, I can do it myself manually. And I have, of course, done it in different parts of the application. For example, here, I'm saving the user data for the registration, right? In the database, you can see you're creating a query, and you're executing the query with the connection to ScyllaDB, which is managed by npm package, right? You can see it right here. So where is it? Let's see. Here we go. So it's in utils, right? So in utils, I created this ScyllaDB, right? The password, because it's local, it's Cassandra. It's you can set this in a file, or you can set it as a environment variable, which is recommended. And so you have one variable for the local host or testing environment, and you have one for the production, right? Or let's say development, and one for production. Now, I don't want to do all that. So because we're using AI to make our lives easier, I want to basically figure out how to ask Copilot to do this for me, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go here below and write a comment and create a ScyllaDB query to add these users to the users table. Select, go back. But if I do it like a comment, it's going to keep writing a comment. So I wrote this reference here, but now I have to do something like, something like that. There we go. Not comment, come on, const. There we go. Okay, let's see what it created. So it created a fetch method from index.js, right? And it knows to take the URL from the variable at the top. Okay, because we are on the client.js here, right? It creates a fetch request, which makes sense. But if I want to create just the manual query for it, which I think I should, because I don't need this on the client. Let's create a manual query, right? So I'm not going to create it here. I'm just going to take this, all of this, and go to user controller at the end here in the application in Node.js, paste it here. Let's see what it does here. So it does this const add users async. Okay, let's start with const. Insert query, right? And now what? Insert query. Where's the rest, Copilot? You don't know the rest? Right. Const insert users. Maybe it will know how to do this. Okay. Maybe let's hit tab. Okay, now what? Let's see what it does. And all right, the end, I guess. catch error. I'm not sure what there was a way to basically get the entire function written from the first, or look at through the different versions of the function that it proposes, right? Let's see. Is there something wrong here? Yes. Okay. So now the function is ready. I think it's correct. User ID, email, username, invited by. You know what? We need all these information. All this information we needed. So we have to create some emails from these usernames. We have to specify a username for this, and this one is the now date, so it's all good. But so it loops through the usernames array, and so it does sort of like create a query for each user, right? All right, so I guess this is correct. I'm not sure if this is the most efficient way, but we can go with this. But we do need the email, all right? So create emails array. Let's see. Oh, all right. So I guess emails, that's it. All right. So emails is in here. It just added this at the end with the map function. And so if we do console, let's test it. Test. No, just console. What is the output of this function? Let's see. I save this, and then I restart this. Okay. So, are we showing something here? All right. It took its time, but it's here, and it's correct. Okay. So we have the emails. We have the users, and we have the emails. And what else do we need? We can, for invited by, we can just say one user here. We don't have to say grat. This is the original symbol for gratitude token. All right. First user. Registration date is okay. Okay. Save this. By the way, let's check the database. I think it's empty at the moment, but so in order to do it, we have to call it, right? Call the function. Anything else? No. That's it. Let's run it and see what happens. Okay, so we have an error here. Invalid string representation of UUID. Yes, of course. So this format is not correct. Now I see there's no actual, like, the user ID here. Insert query. All right, let's see what I think I know what the issue is here, but I think we can also ask Copilot to see what it does, what it answers. So I'm just gonna copy this, right? By the way, I think you can also ask it in here. Let me, no, you can't. So I have to copy this, and let's see. What is this error? Does it know how to? Okay. And also, you don't actually have to ask it. You can just insert here, Control Y, / explain, and enter. And on the left here, we'll see. Okay, it's a conversation. So we're here. So what it Okay, what is the fix? Let's see. Correct. What are you talking about? No, you don't have to import it. All right, so this is not the correct solution. So I'm just going to delete this. It's not this way of debugging is not good. All right, so let's try and look at what is wrong here. So we have maybe we don't need, let's see. So in the user controller, we have this here, right? This query, for example. You see it's insert query. Now this may be required in order for it to work. Let's see. Oh, we already have it here. Okay. So what is another way that we can ask Copilot to fix this issue? Because we're trying to get the most out of it, so it may be able to understand what the issue is if we ask it to maybe looking at this function, right? Saves your data function. What is the correct way to insert these queries in the BD? No. No. So let me just take this and maybe try and insert everything here. And then Control Y. Didn't work. For a second. Control Y. And we can do something here. Maybe fix. Let's see what it does. It's being used, so why? No. Discard. Okay. I'm sure. Let's read the error again, because we're going blind here at this point. So fail to insert users. Invalid string representation of UUID should be in the. Well, actually, you don't have to insert this like that. So if we look at this function here, let's see. So we don't have check, all right, insert new data into users. User ID, email, username, invited by registration date. Okay. So I think let's try and look at this. So the values are like this, right? Insert query. The values are here. So this is the problem. You see, I have to copy this and put it here. So we didn't know how to fix this, but let's see. There's another issue, or what happens here? Static file server failed to insert response in invalid amount of bind variables. Expected 3, received 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Expected 3, received 4. Username. Okay, yeah. So it's not correct because I don't think we need the first username. Let's see. So user ID, email, this is actually the correct one. Let's just copy this. All right, because I already did it here. Yeah, okay, I think it's okay. And for the inserting, for the query, only this. Again, right here. All right, so now we fixed it. Clear this terminal and insert it successfully. Let's check the database. Cool. So it worked, but we don't have, because we didn't go through the registration process, we don't have some other details like full name. These, of course, we don't have because the user will set these later. Also the language and the sex, but username, invited by, email, and the user ID, which are the most important ones, were created. So now maybe we can use Copilot to create the rest of the. We can drop all this and create the rest of the data and just use mock data because we need it for the interface. You know, every time we go and check the interface, let's close this, which is localhost, developing on the laptop. So when you log in, you use your username and secret share. And I will talk about this in the next episode tomorrow. This is a very cool encryption method, and I wish more people would use this because it's quantum resistant encryption. So this protects your key, and I found a way to use this Shamir secret sharing scheme to basically make sure that the user will never lose the private key without us knowing or having access to the private key. Very important. So I'm just going to go to the timeline here. And so, or just the profile, right? So we need to have at least 10 users. We can create more to be able to play with this interface and populate name, everything here. Eventually we'll populate everything. Username, this will start with 0, of course. This is just mock data. Here there will be no posts, no personal, no posts for any user. But this is mock data, and we go step by step. And so the first step is to create the users so that we can interact. Like the first thing that I want to do is to have users following each other, creating connection, like friend request, and following each other. So the connection is very simple. You just click this button, and I want to show basically it's going to be like a 50% half done action, let's say, because the user on the other end, right? This is not going to be you. is going to be another user, will have to accept that connection. So if it's only from your side, it's a connection 50%. And also you can click here if you want to follow the user or not. So at this point, this is mock data. Nothing happens if I click, but the point is to make it work, right? So this is just another small task that I need to do. There's like hundreds of these little tasks that will create the functionality so that the application can actually be used, right? So, all right, so let's go back. So we are in the user controller. We created this function to basically insert users, which I will comment for now because we don't need it to do the same thing again. And I do want to add more data to it, right? And then we can go about seeing how to basically show all this data in the front end. So we will have to create a request on the client side that will get this data if the client is authenticated. So it will have to use the username and the secret share in order for the user to be able to do any important action that is about posting content, sharing, liking, all the important actions. All right, so I just want to go back here a little bit and see what is going on with this structure that we have. Just want to check something really quick before I start. So you see here, one of the things that we have, this is going to be a separate table from users. So let's see what this table is from user fault. This is the table. Oh, it's because I had double. All right, so the user ID is going to be the same from the users table, right? It's going to be copied. So the first thing we do whenever we make a request to this sort of application is about security. Like, this is one of the most important things. So of course the user has to be authenticated. It has to have a token, unique token sent by the server to authenticate. It has to manage that really well. This was already done in user controller and email controller, right? And all the code is open source. You can take a look at it in combination with the Shamir secret sharing scheme. You have user controller and email controller, and basically what happens is the user, I can show you. You go back to the front end, log in. I'll use this username and this secret share. This is a testnet account, and log in, right? So now I'm logged in, and if I go, let's simulate a mobile screen here. Go to the console, and I want to do something like get session. So this is the session token, the user ID, and the user, right? So this information is going to be sent every time from the client to the backend to authenticate the user for any action. And on top of this, we will also check this database here to see if the user has any sort of penalty, if the user is in prison for some reason, or if the user is banned. If the user is banned from the network, he will not be able to read anything from the database to communicate basically with the application, with the servers. And so this is the first thing that we have to check. Now, let's see. What is the next move? I think the next move for us is I'm going to drop the database, drop table users, right? And so I dropped the table and I have to create it again. So in order to create it, I have, where is it? right here. I go to the documentation that I keep updating here in this first epic task, and I have this query here, right? So I go in the terminal, I paste it, I enter it, and now the table is created. And select all from users, all right? From users. Okay, so now I have to create index on these two columns because I have to do this every time. Okay, now I have the table. Again, empty table, right? I could have also used truncate, I guess, but I forgot about that. All right, so let's see. Right, so I want to make use of this function again, but before I do that, let's ask Copilot to create maybe a full name. Let's just Control I and create another array below with a full name derived from these users. Let's see. Smith. Okay, let's see what happens with Smith. So he's going to add Smith, right? That's going to be funny. And it also makes the first character capitalized, uppercase, right? That's funny. All right, that's good. That's actually, if I would have tried to write this function, I would have probably did it this way or another way, but it would not have taken me like that 1 second, right? Even if I'm at my best, I'm not tired and I'm just in the flow, which is not the case for this late hour for me. It would have taken me at least a minute or two, right, to figure out the function to make it work, right? So now we have full names. Let's see. The thing is that we need to update this function, right? So in order to do that, I'm going to remove the comments. I'm going to select everything here, Control I, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT, sorry. I'm used to ChatGPT, using ChatGPT to code, but recently, a few days ago, I said, okay, let's see what Copilot can do, right? So here we are. So I think I have to ask here something like, can you update the, what's it called? Insert users function to take the full names array. Let's see. So username is good. Email is good. Invited by. What? So full names is good, but I don't see this. No, invited by here. I guess this was a suggestion. Yeah, sure. Let's go with this. Okay. So we know what will happen. Let's write also the languages maybe. And what else can we do? The username chosen. The username. We didn't add the username. Right, or did we? So usernames. No, I guess we didn't. User ID, username. I'm going to accept this for now, but I also want to check something with the username because I think what happens here, we have this array that we go one by one, but it doesn't actually, I don't see it inserting it here. So maybe just update this, add username to, yeah, there we go. Could have done that manually, but you know, why not go with the trend? Get lazy. All right, so this will work, I think. What else can we do? City, country. This will be set by the user. This will be set by the user. The languages. Can we do a languages array? I want to do a languages array. So let's see what it does here. Does it know const languages? No. No. No, no, no. Const languages. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. And see, I have to help him. This is awesome. All right. And now I can update the entire function, the whole thing here. Let's say add languages array 2. Accept. Cool. What the hell is going on here? Full names and languages. Why? Doesn't really, I mean, I can add them here, but I can also just use them from here. Full names, string, languages, string. All right, I'm gonna save this and run it again. Okay, we have an error. I'm missing something here I didn't see. All right, so let's see. Failed to insert users. This unknown identifier language. Why? Languages. That's why. Languages. So here it does. Oh, so a set is like a JSON. That's one of the things that I didn't. It's not necessarily an array, it's a JSON. It's like an object, just an object. All right, so that's one of the things. I want to copy this and try and see how it goes. Now it's empty. And we have a syntax error. Already, line 3. I'm guessing it's, let's see. Why is it null here? What the hell? John Doe. What does this null have to do with anything? Yeah, this is not going to work like that. I think we have to wrap things up, and I guess I'm going to try to fix this. And tomorrow I'll live stream again at the same hour, I guess. And I'm just going to close this. I'll have this sorted, and we can get started in using these users and trying to create the functionality in the client, which is more of my cup of tea. I'm 60 to 70% more front-end developer, and only in the last 3 to 4 years I've started basically working with Node.js and blockchain and I guess all these new technologies. I used to work with PHP and MySQL and Linux, cPanel, all that in the old days. But you know, I have 10 years of JavaScript, but I recently started using TypeScript. So all these tools, all these technologies, I'm trying to figure out, just like everyone else, how to integrate them in my workflow. And so this is what I'm trying to do for FreeHumans.world as well. All right, guys. So See you tomorrow.